Hey guys, I wanted to share with you guys today my workflow for taking my 360 panoramas that I generated using Blockade Labs Skybox AI generator and bringing them into Twinmotion so that we can bring in other 3D objects and lights and position them in our scene so that way we can output other panoramas or video panoramas. So we can do a lot with it. Now you can also bring these into Unreal Engine, and I'm currently learning how to use Unreal Engine, and once I figure that out, I'll be back with another video. But right now, I've been using Twinmotion, which is an Unreal Engine program for doing architectural rendering primarily, but you can do other things with it as well. Um, and you can bring these panoramas in as an HDRI image. And once you bring them in as an HDRI image, then you can manipulate them in 3D. So it's really pretty cool. What you're looking at right now here is a panorama that I generated using these keywords down here. Okay, so I wanted a kind of an old space workbench type of garage, maybe with a car and maybe a garage door or something like that. You can see in this room right now, we just have this one single door. And this was my very first generation of this. Once I start, I use notes and will put in my generations that I make. So when I download them to my hard drive, I also click on share and I put that share link in my notes so that way I can always go back to that previously generated image. So if I find an image that I like or seems to work really good, then I can always go back to it. And now that they've introduced this new remix, it's even better because we can go in and find a scene that you really, really liked and tweak it a little bit and try to make it even better. So that's basically what I've done here. I've gone through literally 102 iterations to find the image that I wanted to use with you guys today. This was my first one that was what I called better. And this one here was a larger garage space here with some nice beams, a high ceiling, a stove with a fire going, nice big window, but it's broken. I didn't like that. And the problem I had with this image was the lighting. You can see the lighting here on the floor doesn't really match the windows. So that's one thing I worked on, and that's why it took a while to get down through this, because when I see things like the light on the floor not matching the windows, it just doesn't look right. So although it's a great looking image, it's not accurate. So I want it more accurate. This car showed up, which is really pretty cool. How they got the car in there, I don't know. They must have taken this wall down and bricked it back up again because there's no door for the car. So that was another problem. We needed a good garage here for the car. Let's see. And this is the one that I ended up using that we'll use today. All right. So it's got some fairly decent light coming in, and it's kind of believable, I think. And it's got a pretty cool little car there. So not a lot to look at in here, and I didn't want it too cluttered up because I want to put in my own stuff. So we can spend some time populating this with some 3D objects. So let's get to it. So the first thing that we want to do is download our image, obviously. And once that's downloaded, I'm going to upscale it. Now, if you have Photoshop, you could do all of this in Photoshop. But my workflow is to use Topaz Gigapixel AI to upsize it, and then sharpen, and then denoise, and then I bring it into Photoshop and turn it into an HDRI image. So let's look at that process. First, I'll open up Gigapixel. These softwares are all very easy to use, and once you have them set, it's pretty much just open up your file and bring it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and open our image up. All right, here it is here. All right, and I have it set for 12,000 pixels, and basically we're scaling it up 1.95%. All right, so almost 2%, but we're going from an image that's 6,144 by 3,072 to 12,000 by 6,000. And the reason I'm doing 12,000 by 6,000 is because I bring these into ThingLink, where I host my images and my tours, and their maximum size is 12,000 by 6,000. So I just use the maximum size to get the best image that I can. And because we're bringing this into a 3D environment, we definitely want our image to be as large and as high a quality as we can get. So with that said, we'll go ahead and take a look at this, and you can see we don't see a lot going on because we're just basically upscaling it. So we should get some detail. Like, I like to look at this portion of our wall right here because we got some cracks and crevices in there, and when you're looking at it like this, you can see how it's a little bit blurry. And then when I bring this over, this is what the new image will look like. So it's a little bit more crisp. All right, so we could look at other places in our image as well if we're interested in seeing what's going on. This wall is a good candidate because you can see these cracks that you see here, and then when I come over these, watch the cracks, they'll appear. All right, it's hard to see at first, but go kind of slow, you can kind of see, and it's very slight, it's not a very big difference. So we'll go ahead and save this out, and it will create a new file name, and it'll basically tack on the 12,000 to the end of it. Okay, now that that's done, we'll close this out, and now we'll take our second step and we'll go into sharpen. Come out here and find our image. It's up there, and we'll open it up. Now we'll see a lot bigger difference in here, and we'll do the same thing over here. And look at this concrete we see right here, and as we bring this over, it'll sharpen it right up. You can see how it's kind of blurry and then sharper, blurry, sharp. We'll look at our same wood over here. All right, kind of blurry, kind of sharp. All right, see how that just makes everything look better. Even when we come down here to the stuff that's very far away from our view, even the background improves. All right, so we'll go ahead and save this out. All right, so sharpen's done. Now our last step is to go into noise, denoise. All right, the file's done, and now we can go into Photoshop. So we're going to open up Photoshop and open our file that we just created. It's this one at the very top where we can see it's 12,000 pixels, and it's been sharpened and focused. Now we're in Photoshop. I have it open, and before I do anything and before I make any changes, I was doing this earlier, and I want to show you guys how to put in a door in Twinmotion as well. So we have a door opening right here, and I would like to take out this part down bottom so that would be completely open. And the best way to go about doing that is to probably try some content aware fill in here. So I'm not really going to be too precise on my selection here, but just kind of go along the wall a little bit. like so. Come along this door, like so. All right. So now that it's selected, I'm going to come up here to edit, and I'm going to do content aware fill. And it's first going to come in here and try to fill in this door with some brick, as you can see here. So this is our preview. So what I'm going to do here is actually just subtract out this stuff. All right, all of this brick work. So give me a second to do that. Okay, now that we have that done, you can see that Photoshop has gone ahead and filled that in. And I'll just go ahead and hit OK. And it doesn't look too bad. Now, if you see any repeating patterns or a little bit of a hole there or something that we might have missed, you can always go over it with the clone stamp tool here. So I'm just going to come on this background copy layer, and I'm going to do a little cloning from this hill here, and I'm going to just clone in this area right here, and that looks fine, and the rest of it looks okay to me. So gonna basically zoom back out, and we'll finish the rest of this up. So if you're not doing any cloning or any sort of cosmetic work, the next part is the only 2 steps that you really need to do to convert something into an HDRI image from a JPEG. So I'm gonna come up here to edit and come down to assign profile. Excuse me. Okay, so now that we're done doing that, we're going to go back in . All right, so now that we're done doing this cloning, we can go in and do our 2 steps to convert this into an HDR photo. So we're going to basically collapse our background down into our background layer, our background copy. Oh my God. So now that we're done this part, we're going to zoom back out and finish the rest of this up. What I need to do first is collapse this background copy layer down. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a merge down, and that's fine. And this next step is, these next 2 steps is all you really need to do to convert a JPEG into an HDR image. So we're going to come up to edit and down to assign profile, and under profile here we're going to select Pro Photo RGB, and I'll hit OK. So when you do this, you can see that your image turns a little bit pinkish here, or it will change color on you. Every time I do this, you get a bit of a different color change, and you can leave it the way it is, or you can go in and adjust it if you want. So I think this is a little bit too pink, so I'm going to come in here and just click on hue and saturation, and I'm going to adjust the color just a little bit, and take and bring up the cyan a little bit here, which should take out some of that pink. You can see it kind of brought that back and made the image look a little bit better. So if you do any adjustments like that, then make sure that you merge down. All right, so again, if you do any edits, whatever you do, if you have any layers or anything like that, you have to have this image flattened before we can do this next step. So we only want the background copy in here. Now if you brought your image in and it's just a JPEG and you don't have to do anything to it, that's great. You only have to do these 2 steps. So now that we've converted this to Pro Photo, the last step is to come up to Image, come down to Mode, and just change it to 32 bits per channel. And then we'll come up to File and do a Save As. And save it as whatever we want as far as the name's concerned. But the format has to be radiance, okay? If it's on Photoshop, we don't want Photoshop. We want radiance because this creates our HDR file. And that's what's required here. So we'll go ahead and save that off. It'll create our HDR file. And I can close Photoshop. Now we're going to go into Twinmotion by coming down and opening up our Epic Games launcher. Okay, so now we're in Twinmotion, and as you can see, the interface is fairly simple. On the right-hand side, we have the scene graph and properties. On the left, we have our library and our assets. Down bottom, we have some commands and some toggles, and up at the top, we have some editing commands for moving, rotating, and scaling objects. The first thing we want to do when we come in here into Twinmotion is we're going to delete the landscape because we don't really need that for what we're doing. And we don't need this model of this starting base. This is just a placeholder that they put in here. We do need the starting ground, but we can shut that off for now. We may use it later. And we're going to come up here to Ambience. And we're going to basically just scroll down a little ways until we find HDRI environment. We're going to enable it. Click on Backdrop HDRI. Scroll down a little ways and you'll see that the image that you're looking at is called Approaching Storm. And we're going to change that with our HDRI image that we just made. So I'm going to click on the ellipsis right here, these three dots, and click on Open to open up Explorer. I'm going to click on Garage here and open that. And this will take a minute or two to load, so just be patient while it's loading. Okay, now that it's loaded, we can see that the HDRI images come in, but it doesn't look quite correct yet. So what we need to do first off is we're going to set a few things. So I'm going to just scroll down here a little ways. All right. And we're going to come down here to Details and open that up. And the first thing that you can do is just click on Center Backdrop. And that will immediately put us into the 360 environment. And if you want to look around with your right mouse button. If you just accidentally tried to look around with your left mouse button, that probably just happened. Okay? If that just happened, then you're going to want to come back in here and center your backdrop again. All right? So right mouse button. All right, so in order to keep this view so that you can come back to it often, I would recommend coming down here to the dock after you center your backdrop. Come down here to the dock where it says Media, open that up and click on this little plus, which will create a static image of our scene so that we can come back to this point at any time if we want to. Okay, so in here on the media dock you can create images, and this is where you can create your videos and your panoramas, panorama sets, presentations, and phasing. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is check the scale of our HDRI, and I'm going to do that using these doors because doors are a known type of dimension. Most doors are 6 foot 8 inches tall to 7 feet tall, depending on whether it's residential or commercial. Sometimes patio doors are 7 feet tall. This patio door looks like it's 6 feet wide and probably 6 foot 8 inches tall or 7 feet tall. All right. This door here looks like it's 6 foot 8 and probably 3 feet wide. All right. So I'm going to insert a character. So I'm going to come over here to our library on the left, and we can insert a few different characters in here. We have groups of people, animated humans, we have posed humans, cutout humans, and animals. All right. For right now, we're going to just use our animated humans because they're kind of fun to play with. We have quite a variety of characters to choose from here. I'm going to just drag and drop a mirror in here. So I'm going to just use my left mouse button and click and hold on him. Drag him in, and you'll notice that he's attached to the ground, and you can drag him around. As soon as you release your mouse button, he'll be anchored into the scene, and he should turn orange and have this little gizmo. So now that he has this little gizmo, we can see that he's too small. He's only probably around 3 feet tall around to that door right there. You can turn him around if you want using this little blue arrow right here and just rotate him around. The green and red axes are your X and Y coordinates. So if you click and hold on green, you're moving in X. If you click on the red, you're moving in Y or X. Doesn't really matter. And the blue is Z, your Z axis, so you can move them up and down. Now, if you get him up in the air and you want him back on the ground, click and hold on the little yellow dot in the middle, and that will anchor him back down to the ground. All right. So now let's deal with the scale issue here. So we're going to we'll leave him right there where he's at, and we'll come back over here to ambience, and we'll come back down to our HDRI environment, and we'll open up details. And now we need to talk about the size, the offset for the height, and the offset for the projection. I played around with this for I don't know how long, trying to get the right sizes in here. Obviously, you can bring in objects like him, and you can scale him up, using the scale command. All you have to do is come in here and click on that gray box in the middle, and that will let you scale him up and down. All right. But if you do that, then you're going to commit yourself to everything that you bring in, have to scale it up. And so it's probably not the best way to do it. So I'm going to give you the numbers that I came up with, which was I doubled 80 to 160. And the height offset, I went from a minus 0.1 to a positive 0.5. And on the projection offset, from 3, I divided that in half to 1.5. And now if we use our right mouse button and look around, you can see the car looks a little bit different in size. It's not as wide as it was before. And he still looks small, but don't worry about that. Everything else looks about the same. So we're going to come back up here and click on Move. And we're going to click on the little yellow dot again and bring him back out to the floor. And now you can see he's a different size. So if we bring him next to the door now, we can see that he is roughly, maybe 6 feet tall, 5'10" maybe. I don't know, something like that. The point is that he is now the correct scale to that door, and if you bring him around this car, you can see he's pretty much the correct size for the car as well, if this is like a MG midget or something like that. Notice that as we move him around the scene, he changes in size based on where the perspective is. So as we move around this scene, we can move him from end to end and side to side. All right. So that is really pretty cool. So now we have that set, and I also did this in a couple other scenes just to kind of verify that these numbers actually worked. So I wanted to show you that, and we'll basically save this scene out. I'm going to call it Garage Test 2. And I'm going to open up one of the caves that I did, the tombs. These are underground tombs. So here I have a mirror in here, and if we look at the details over here, you'll see that I'm using the same settings here, 160.5 and 1.5. And to verify if he's the right size or not, let's kind of come over here. There's another doorway over here. So it looks about right. This could be, any size of a doorway, but, width-wise, I'm assuming that this is possibly around 6 feet wide. If you look at this hallway, it looks about like 6 feet wide. I'm thinking that this door right here is probably 5 feet wide, but I'm just assuming. But if we take a mirror and we actually rotate him so that he's kind of laying down, blink, or we could have just laid him down. Let's do that. I forgot to show you guys that, but you've probably already noticed it, that our characters have a bunch of settings over here. We can change their clothing colors, we can change their poses, to speaking, to walking, to lying down, to dancing. And all of these different poses have different animations. So for dancing, for instance, he has 4 different animations. Alright. And like under special, for instance, there's quite a few under there. So everything from riding a scooter, to filming, to being disabled, to feeding some pigeons. So you can have quite a few different varieties of these people in your scenes. So anyway, let's put them back down, laying down on the ground. If we kind of put them down and rotate them around a little bit. Yeah, I'd say let's stand him back up again, and I think it's better this way if we just kind of lay him down so that he's going straight. Kind of push him in the doorway here. Get him going. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty believable. I would say that if that is 6 feet and he's around 6 feet, then that's pretty much correct. So it looks about believable, and it looks correct to me. So also notice that the shadow shows up in here. And in our other scene, it's not showing up as well because the scene is so bright that it doesn't really show up as well. But the brightest light in the HDR scene is considered to be the sun in the primary light source that's casting shadows right now. I'm finding if you want shadows coming from all of the lights, then you can go ahead and put actual lights in to cast those shadows. So that also seems to work. So I've done both. For instance, we can come over here to our library, click on lights. I'll just bring in an omnidirectional light and put that in on the floor here. You can see how it lights the floor up. So we can bring it over here close to this, and then maybe lift it up about a little bit on top of that. This is an image, it's not a 3D object, so you really can't put it inside of it. So I'll just kind of roughly put it at the rough height of it. So at this point, you can see the orange circle coming around, which is the attenuation. So we can, make that bigger or smaller. You do have to remember that when we bring in these lights, the shadows aren't on by default. So we have to come over here in properties and enable them. And once it's enabled, then you would see some shadows on the floor. But this light's so bright, I think it's kind of overriding it. But when I did some rendering early, there it is. You can see it right there. You can see how there's shadow casting on the floor there, and one behind them and one in front of them. So yeah, things are working pretty good. I didn't think it was working as well in the other image, and it just really was because it's so bright. It's very, very brightly lit, and I probably should have chosen a different image, but anyway, this proves the point pretty well, I think. So, okay, let me show you one more example here. We're going to come up and open up another scene. We have a little cottage. And I thought this scene was off at first, but I just think that the door itself is a really large door and meant to be large. So here he is in here again, and again using the same settings here of 160.5 and 1.5. We'll move them over here next to this door, and you can see the door is pretty tall. But if you look at the door knob itself, where that's positioned, it looks about right for him. And if we bring him over here, we have a kitchen, which is nice because we know that kitchen counters are around 3 feet tall. So if he's 6 feet tall, then if I bring him closer to the counter, it should be about up to his waist, and it is. So I think these numbers are pretty good. If you come up with any other numbers or find out another way to do that, please put it in the comments for other people, and I'll do another video and update this one. But anyway, let's go back into our garage test. Okay, now we're back in our garage scene, and one thing that I'd like to do first is put in a real car, because this is just a two-dimensional car in a three-dimensional environment, so to speak, because we are in a 3D sphere that has a 2D image basically wrapped on the inside of it. So over here we have in our library vehicles and cars, so we can come in here and pick from any of these vehicles that we want. Let's try this SUV here and bring that in, and you can see it comes in at the right size, and I'm gonna just basically put it over this other car so that it's just right about there. I guess that looks good. Okay, so now we have a mirror next to the car. He can still go through the car, but you can see him now. You can see his reflection on the car, which is nice. So that gives a lot more realism to the scene. The problem is we have this scene with everything being old, and it would be nice for this car to be old as well. The problem right now, I can't seem to change the color. You can change the color over here, so we can change it to red or gold or whatever we want, but it would be nice to be able to put some rust on it or something like that. So when I try to pick the material, it won't let me pick the material. Alright, so you can use the material picker to pick a material, and it won't let me pick that material. So what we're going to do instead, until I can figure that out, we can come over here to Sketchfab, and the Sketchfab library is available for everything. So we can come over here for cars, and I already downloaded a few to test them out. Okay, so we'll drag and drop this one in the scene, and you can see it comes in just like everything else on the floor here. And this one comes in, it's not the right scale, so you know, it depends on if someone drew this in metric or feet and inches or whatever, so it's okay. We can scale it down and get it in there to the rough size that we need. So I'm just going to use the scale command here and bring it in like this. Alright, we'll put it over there like that, and then scale it up a bit more so it's over that car. And one more time. That looks about correct right there, I'd say. Yeah, that doesn't look bad. Now, we want to make this car look a little bit older, so now this is what I wanted to do before, is come over here to Mega Scans and come down here to Surfaces, come here to Metal, Corroded, and I'm going to just pick, you know, one of these rusty metal. Like, let's try this one right here. Yeah, makes it look really rusty. That one. That's the one I want right there. So we'll put those on the headlights as well. All right. And you can do some adjustments on these. So you should be able to come up here and pick the material, and then come over here and in the properties be able to, you know, change things like, you know, the grunge amount, and you have a lot of fine controls over these materials. So you can change the saturation, change the gamma on there, you can change the lift of it, change the gain of it. You can even change the color. So if we wanted the car to have like an underlying reddish color from original, you can see how we can do that. All right, drag and drop that onto the headlights as well. I'd like to make the headlights look a little bit old, so I tried this earlier, and this metal here, this rusty boat hull, seemed to actually work, because we can put that on and then change the color to be really dark. Let's see. Yeah, and I kind of played with it before and just got things kind of textured the way that it kind of looked like some old headlights there. Anyway, we could keep playing with this stuff all day. That's not the point of what I'm trying to show you guys here. We have the car in there now, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so next up, the reason we did this in Photoshop was to put in an actual door. So over here in the library, we're going to come down here to Objects, and down here we have Doors, and we want a rotating door. And I thought like having this metal door being all rusted would look pretty cool, so I'm going to bring that in and just kind of place it in here. The cool thing about these doors is they're animated, so when a character comes near to the door will open. So it just adds a little bit more realism to the whole thing here. So this blue circle that goes around it is the trigger. So over here in the properties, we'll come down here to behaviors and the trigger. Alright, so this is the trigger radius, and we'll make that a little bit smaller, probably like that. So when someone comes near to it, then the door will open or close depending on what we want to happen. You can also change the angle and whether it's swinging in or swinging out, whether it's right-handed or left-handed. So all the, you know, stuff you can do with a door. And then of course we can change the width and height. So we can widen this out to make it fit our space. So I can get up there. Let's see, yeah, right about there. And I think maybe we can, yeah, probably like that. Doesn't look too bad. All right. Yeah, we could probably get it to fit a little bit more. We could tweak it some more. But anyhow, we can go ahead now and rust it up and just kind of throw a rusty old material on there. And there you go. All right. So now we have the door in, and that's what I wanted to show you for that. We can bring in other stuff. They have other really cool stuff in here if you haven't played with this before, but Mega Scans are really cool. They have a lot of really good 3D assets. So we can come in here and find some props. Let me find a barrel. All right, barrels. All right, we're going to come in here. I'm going to get this metal barrel and bring that in here. And we're going to bring in a little bit of a a little fire here. So we'll come back into our library and we'll come over to our, under objects, I'm going to come down to particles and smoke with fire. So I can bring that in, torch up the room, bring it up. You can use the scale command to scale it down a little bit if it's too big, too much dumpster fire. But anyway, you can have some fun, like I said, and play around with this all day. I've had a lot of great fun playing with it. So, okay, so I wanted to show you guys some other assets and how you can bring some other things in. For instance, like here on the Megascans, we have some trash bags, and sometimes in Megascans, they're like multi-element. So for instance, this is a pack of trash bags and you get 4 different ones here that you can drag and drop into your scene like this. And then you can click them individually and just move them around wherever you might want to put them. And you can make them you can make everything look a lot more natural if you drop them using the gravity feature. So you can actually pick some of these up in the air like this. Let's drag them all up, put them up in the air like this. I'm going to hold down my command key and select all 4 of those bags, and I'm going to use the gravity to drop them down. But before I do that, I want to turn the starting ground back on, because if I don't, they'll go right through the floor. So I'm going to turn that starting ground back on and click this gravity button. And they went through the floor because it looks like our starting ground is below. All right. To get the starting ground up, we're going to select it, and using the move tool, we should be able to move the starting ground up. Just sometimes it's hard to find that. There we go. So we want to just bring it down so that it's just like right below the floor like that. So just when you don't see it, because we don't want to see it through the floor. We want to just have it just below the floor, just to kind of give that illusion that it's there. So now we should be able to drop these using gravity and have them fall right on the floor like that. And you can see some of them are down through the floor a little bit, but honestly, you probably won't notice it at all. So, all right. So now that we have a lot of different things in here, we might want to output a panorama, say. So to create a new panorama is very easy. We're going to just click on our panorama here under our media dock and click on the plus button. It honestly doesn't matter where or what direction you're looking. It's just that that will be your initial scene. So we're looking right out like that. So we'll click on Panorama 1 here and click on Pano over here in the properties. Come down to Format, and there's really nothing that we need to do there. So we're going to come over here to Export now, and where it says Panorama, I'm going to click the plus button. I'm going to uncheck Path Tracer because it's not supported on a Mac currently, and that's what I'm on. So we want to come in here and click on Panorama 1. And I want it to be a JPEG. I'm going to open up the details. I'm going to make it 4K and use maximum lighting. And 3D mode is just for stereo mode. So that's all we really have to do for right now. And hit Start Export. And it'll only take a couple minutes to go ahead and spit this panorama out. So here's the panorama that we just exported. I opened it up in our GoPro 360, and you can see our door, you can see our car, the guy. So we basically created this new panorama and putting in our own objects. So we could put in a lot more stuff, but all right. So the last thing you might want to do is to create a little bit of a movie, a 360 movie, that is, a movie that you can put on YouTube where people can move around in 360 as the movie is progressing forward. So we can do that here. So I'm going to come over here to video, and this works really pretty easy because you just basically make keyframes. So this here would be, say, our first keyframe, and then if I turn my view a little bit like that and hit the plus sign, that will give me my next keyframe, and then I can turn again and that can give me my next keyframe. Now if you want to zoom into something, like say I wanted to zoom into this corner for whatever reason, you wouldn't use your roller mouse button at this point. You would use your camera. So we'd come over here and basically use the focal length of the camera to zoom in like that, and then you would go ahead and click the plus button to create your new keyframe, and then you should be able to zoom back out to where we were. I can't remember if we were 12 or where we were. 15 millimeters, something like that. And we'll go ahead and hit the plus again, and then we'll turn plus and turn back to here plus. And we want to take a look at how that looks and get a preview. So we're going to rewind and hit the play button. All right. So right now it's pretty fast because we have the whole entire video set up for 10 seconds in length. So it spreads that out across all these different frames. So if I made it, say, 30 seconds in length, it'll go a little bit slower. So you can see that, you know, there are certain points that, you know, it gets a little bit jumpy, but that's just because if I could put in more keyframes, I think, to make it a little bit better, but so right there, it looks like we could take out this keyframe because it looks like it's the same exact keyframe as that one. So let's just delete that. And let's try that again. So that's not too bad of a little tour around there. So I guess you guys can get the idea of how to do that. The other thing I wanted to show you guys was putting people coming through the door. All right, so we put the animated door in there so that the characters could actually walk through it. So to put in a character path, we need to come to populate. And we're going to come up here to paths and character, and then we'll click on our little path tool. And when I go to place it right now, it's doesn't look like anything's happening. And that's because our starting ground is just below, and it needs to be, we need to be doing it on that starting ground, apparently. I'm finding out. So if we click on our starting ground and we look at our coordinates here, we can see it's at 0.91 meters in Z. And if I just bring that up by 0.01 meters to 0.92, it does that. Okay, so now it looks a little bit weird, so I'm going to have to populate this like so. So when you do this, it comes in with these little orange balls, and so I'll have people come from the outside, and then they'll come through the door, and then they'll turn, and I'll turn. Now remember, our trash bags are down in that corner, so I'm going to stop right about there. And then I'm going to turn around. I want them to go around the trash fire here and come around to right there. And we can adjust this afterwards if it's a little messed up. And they can come here. And then finally they can kind of go through this door. I'll hit enter. All right, and escape out of that. All right, now let's put our starting ground back down to the ground. So here's our starting ground, and I'm going to come in here and put that back down to 0.91. So there we go. So let's see. As people, it looks like the door seems to be working. So right now our character path is set up with a density of 15%. So not too many people coming down through it. And we have street clothing being worn. And the width is 1 meter, so if you had like a sidewalk or a road and you wanted to spread people out, you could make it wider. The density, of course, is how many people are walking on the path. So, and then as we look through the scene, we can see how they walk through. And then just going to go through the door. Of course, this door doesn't have... And they're just going to kind of go off into the sunset there. It's just kind of funny. But that's okay. I guess you guys probably get the point there. So the very last thing to do would be to export this out. And 360 degree movie takes quite a long time to process. So, because you can imagine it's going to render 30 frames per second, and we have 30 seconds of video, so that's a lot of frames to render, so it's going to take quite a while. But I'm going to come over here to our video under our dock over here, and you can set it to the resolution that you want. We'll go with 4K. Let's be conservative here. And we'll go over to export, and we're not exporting a panorama, so I'm gonna unclick that. Then I'm gonna come over here to video, uncheck path tracer, and click our video. Now our video is gonna be an MP4, 30 frames per second. As far as the details concerned, the video mode isn't going to be standard, and it's not going to be 3D. It's going to be 360. This 3D produces a stereoscopic 3D view, and this is a 3D and 360. So this one takes a very long time. Then the resolution here again is 4K. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Start Export on this and show it where to go and hit enter, and we'll wait and see how long it's going to take. But it's going to take a lot longer than you guys are willing to wait, if you've made it this long through the video, that is. Anyway, it probably, let's see, I'm not even going to guess. I bet 6 hours. We'll see. But I'll let it run, and yep, 6 hours roughly. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and just hit cancel on this. I just wanted to show you guys that it does take a long time. Well, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and put your comments in if you have questions, if you have comments, or if you have tips and tricks for other people. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.